Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre from TeddyBaldassarre.com. In this video, we're looking at a watch from Junghans with their take on the Worldtimer with the Meister Worldtimer. An awesome watch, sapphire crystal, and a very different approach from a brand that you probably don't naturally associate with Worldtimers, so it should be a good one. In this video, we'll take a closer look in reviewing this watch. At the end, look at some things to consider. Who is this watch for? Who is it perhaps not for? And then in the description will be a link to the product page where you can get some more information on this piece, as well as buy it from TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of Junghans watches. But guys, let's jump into this video, take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 40.4 millimeters, thickness of 10.5 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, lug to lug of 45 millimeters, water resistance of 50 meters, movement is an automatic Sellita SW330, crystal is a convex sapphire, also plexiglass versions available as well across this collection, and then price $2,045 for this version on the bracelet. But if you do use promo code MWorldtimer at checkout, have this watch, any strap in your cart with that watch, you can get any strap on our site, TeddyBaldassarre.com, for free. TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of Junghans watches, as well as 30 other brands on our site. Quick and fast fulfillment, full factory warranty for all the brands that we carry. Also offer price match. So if you see a product available at another authorized dealer for cheaper, fill out the form on the product page and we will reach out to you. And 9 out of every $10 that we generate from our store goes right back into the content that we're creating. Now, examining the brand Junghans, I think one of the quick interpretations that somebody has is Bauhaus and just design-centric approach to the world of watchmaking, which is certainly going to be I think, an honest representation of the brand in many aspects. But as you look at some of the other options outside of the Max Bill collection, you definitely get some more, I would say, eclectic type of approaches to design outside of maybe the norm in which you typically associate with the brand. And I think the Meister collection is a great approach towards that, forming a lot of the design-centric undertones that you'll see throughout their entire catalog, while fusing it together with, say, some different complications or some different execution that really liven things up a bit more from their more straightforward design approach. And I think much of those attributes are really going to be true here when looking at this Meister Worldtime, a very interesting execution of a Worldtime complication and a pretty reasonable package for a Worldtime complication, all things considered. Now, first looking at this one on the wrist, very similar to many of their other watches, this one falls in with a case size of 40 millimeters in traditional wear, is going to wear similar to many other Junghans watches. Rather compact when you factor in that lug to lug distance here of 45 millimeters, and then also the thickness in this regard being at just 10.5 millimeters. This is going to wear very similar to, say, the Max Bill automatics, their dress-oriented pieces, and making it appropriate on a variety of different wrists out there. The lug design on the Meister collection is a bit more accentuated when looking at it straight on compared to, say, the Max Bill, for example. Sorry to be bringing that up so much, but I know many people with their familiarity with this brand really resides in the Max Bill collection, but overall still is going to form to the wrist quite well. It does have more of an angular profile when looking at those lugs. Between the lugs here, we have a 20 millimeter lug width featuring this really nice mesh style bracelet that I think works with the totality of the design. At the underside, it is going to meet a 2-button release clasp. It's going to have polishing within the clasp, nicely executed, secure with locking, and the system for sizing is going to be a pin system. With bracelets of this format, sometimes a concern can be in the area of pinching hairs on the wrist, but that should be no concern here. Nice breathability and well executed. The bracelet does have a mixing of polishing and brushing across the links, and then on the actual case itself is going to be predominantly polished. But like many Junghans watches, really when you look at the central case architecture, it is basically all dial. The bezel is essentially non-existent. The crystal and that dome effect is really going to be pulling the eyes in. At the 3 o'clock, a small inclusion of a crown here, non-screw down, but operates in traditional fashion. First position is going to feature hand winding. Second position is going to change that inner hour ring that we'll find on the dial. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And at the farthest out point, can adjust the hands at the center while stopping the second hand in the process. Looking within the sapphire dome crystal here, let's first start with the things that are the same when looking across many of the Junghans watches in their catalog. First, along the outside, we do have simple lined hour markers with each of the quarter hours coming in an implied marker. And then at the farthest out point of the dial, you're actually going to see it really extend back towards the case back, which is going to really allow the dial to pop out even further. I find this effect with many of their other collections with their dome crystals, and this effect with the dial really helping to make these watches appear a little bit more with some presence on the wrist, not in a bad way, but certainly more noticeable. And when considering a design style that Junghans has, I think this is certainly a good trait. At the center, a simple sword-style handset featuring lume within the hour and the minute hand, and a simple long steel second hand that will extend and cast over the markers along the outside of the dial surface. Now, towards the middle here, this is really where things start to get a bit different, and really we can address the elephant in the room, which is that internal world timing scale that you will see on the inside. Now, this can all be controlled, and how this is happening is taking this Solita-based movement within and really reworking it to allow it to become a world time complication, matching up with a disc on the inside to reflect what time zone you are going to be setting in. So to set it to the appropriate time zone and the time based on that local area, and that will give you a really good glance of seeing what time it is at different time zones across the world. A world time complication now in the more digital first modern world in which we live in, I think is probably one of the more underrated complications that you can have on a watch, and typically is something that is reserved for watches of a higher price point. So to see it in this $2,000 range, there really isn't as much competition in the category. And I think Junghans did this in a very tasteful manner in its execution. Now, flipping this watch over, we do have an open case back, providing view of a Solita SW330 base, but actually is getting quite a bit of the works in terms of a finishing standpoint. You're getting a Côte de Genève finish across the rotor, which is also signed, also getting some perlage finishing across the bridges, and getting some other fine-grained finishing across different surfaces. Now, this movement base within here, that Solita SW330, is more of a GMT caliber base, which is again being kind of reworked in a way here. So you're getting much of the upside of the serviceability and regulation side of this, while also getting a nicely executed complication on the front side. Now, this move is going to be operating pretty traditional fashion here, 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 hertz, going to feature hacking and hand winding. Again, hacking stopping the second hand when you pull out the crown to the farthest position, and is going to have a 42-hour power reserve. All right, so now to unpack here and just general things to consider when looking at this timepiece, as well as who it's not for and who is it for. Looking at Junghans generally, they're going to be more of a design-forward brand, but this Meister collection, I think, marries many of the ideas that typically we associate with Junghans, and actually getting a pretty useful and added complication of the nicely finished Solita caliber within. It's going to appeal to the common characteristics, being a bit more dress-forward. You're getting a sapphire crystal on here, which I think really will maybe pull in some more people. Plexiglass tends to just be pretty polarizing. I think it's personally more in line with Bauhaus principles and the classic originals, but definitely get the resentment now here being in 2021 and trying to think about a modern wearer. And this one is definitely going to be more appropriate to that side of the aisle. Very wearable across the wrist, also offering some presence just given the dome effect of that dial as well as the crystal, and ultimately a very attractive approach to a world time complication. So I think this is a watch that definitely could pull in maybe the less conventional Junghans potential buyer and looking at this brand in a bit of a different context and light. And I think that is definitely something that Junghans needs to continue to do if they want to just bring in new buyers. And it's a fresh approach for the brand as well as a fresh approach to the world time complication in this price range. All right, guys, well, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, you find these helpful, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon, really would appreciate it. If you're also in the market for this watch, link in the description to the product page, where to purchase at TeddyBaldassarre.com. Full authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, quick and fast fulfillment, full factory warranty for all the brands that we carry. So if something goes wrong, you don't have to pay the bill. And if we're talking about some of these more expensive watches, it can get a little bit pricey. Also, we offer price match. So if one of our watches are cheaper at another authorized dealer, you fill out the form on the product page and then we'll call you. And finally, 9 out of every $10 that we generate from our store goes right back into the content that we're creating, helping to foster up a new generation of watch enthusiasts. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.